This next cake has all of the elements of elegance: glittery fondant, delicate roses, and a soft drape. 3 new techniques involved.
And they're all fondant.
All fondant.
And sometimes people are a little bit afraid of fondant, but if you've ever worked with modeling clay, you can use it.
Okay.
Okay, it's very, very simple. Now, I've got some that I've rolled out ahead of time. You can purchase it ready-made. There is a recipe where you can make it yourself. It's a little bit long to bake, so I normally use the ready-to-make stuff. And then you can add your paste icing color with a toothpick and just knead it in until you get the color that you want. Always start out with a small amount because you can always add more.
Because it's white, comes white, you need to add the color if you want color. Okay.
Now I'm going to go ahead and unwrap this one section, because if you're going to be talking on the phone or something like that, you want to make sure that
things come up.
Yes, it will dry out. It makes it harder to work with. Well, let me just get rid of this one too. So we're going to roll it out to 1/8 of an inch. Now I just have a French rolling pin, and these are actually rings that fit on the end of it, and this one is marked at a 1/4 of an inch.
And so you know when it'll flatten out to that degree when it's already rolling on the table.
Yeah, I'm sorry, this is 1/8 of an inch.
Okay.
So they come in different sizes, and we're going to cover this cake. So what we've done with the cake, this is smaller than the one we're doing the decorations on, but I've covered it with what's called a crumb coating of buttercream, so that it actually holds your crumbs in so they don't get in your fondant. But if you see any little points that are kind of sticking out after it's dried, it's called crumb coating because it kind of crusts over.
Sure. And what's nice is if you touch them and make them a little bit flatter, that way the fondant, they don't show through in the fondant. Right?
And as you're rolling out your fondant, one thing you do want to do is you want to lift it and turn it.
Okay.
Because if you don't, then it could stick a little bit more.
Now you're unsticking the fondant.
I'm unsticking my fondant, and I'm just going to roll it on my rolling pin here and pick it up, and then I'm just going to lay it over the top. Now, to know how much fondant that you actually require, you want to make sure you measure the side of your cake across the top and down.
Okay.
So, and you add that together, and that's what you're going to actually use. Then there are fondant shapers out there you can use. I tend to use my hands.
In the heat of your hands.
And then if it looks like it's going to pucker on the side, just lift it up and then tuck it back in.
Okay.
And it
Especially
actually
the
shapes.
corners. That's sometimes people are concerned about the corners of their cakes when you roll out fondant.
A turntable helps because then you can just kind of go around however you want.
And I hate to point out your mistakes, but you know, here's an example where your fingernail kind of probably got in there. This is going to happen to folks at home.
It will. Now, if that happens at home, what I would do is I would just continue to take the heat of my hand and continue to rub it. You can see it's disappearing. I need to rub it a little bit longer than I want to stand here and rub, but you can see that it does look different there. And then you want to cut it, and there are little pieces of equipment that you can get to actually cut it, and then, or you can use your knife like I was. I'm just going to pull this away. You can reuse that portion, but then you can actually tuck it underneath.
Sure.
And normally you're going to cover it with a border anyway, so you don't have to be totally careful with that. But again, just using your hand and shaping it over the top. And you're right, that bothers me. I want to keep doing it.
Okay, I know, but here's the thing. When I make mistakes on things like this, there are other ways. I mean, you can add a rose right there. I mean, there are lots of ways to hide errors,
absolutely. Let's do the drape next, and I've got this rolled out, and your drape is about 3.5 inches by 4 inches. So we'll just use this as our straight edge. And this is the little piece of equipment that I was talking about that's a roller.
Is it a fondant roller, or is it just a roller that you can use with other things? Or?
Yeah, you can use it for other things. It actually looks like an old sewing tool.
Yeah, it does.
So then I'll mark this out here so that I know exactly where it is there. And it actually comes with a couple of different heads that store in here, so you could do serrated if you wanted to.
Oh, that'd be fun with fondant to have that serrated edge.
And let me just come across here. I want it a little bit more. And I've got it on the edge there.
And at home, you might want to designate a ruler just for cooking purposes, so that you know, aren't using the ruler that you also, I don't know, do homework with.
And then all you're going to do is you're just going to bunch it up and kind of fold it and tuck it. And then depending on how, you know, whether you want it open or if you want it a little bit more closed, and you want to measure across. The reason I said 4 inches is because it goes across, and we're going to put 2 loops. You can do one big loop if you want to, but it's much easier if you do 2 shorter ones than it is the other one. And then let's do a rose.
Okay, I'm ready for a rose.
And for the larger rose, you want it about 1 inch wide, and for the shorter rose, you're going to want it about 3/4 of an inch.
What's nice about this mat is there is actually a grid on it so that you can, you know, You don't have to always break out the ruler.
So I'm going to let you do a rose. All you do is when you start out, you kind of twist it and pinch it down at the bottom. And then you can spread the top if you want to. You're really going to town there. Or you can leave it tight. The main thing is when you're making your roses, all of your roses are going to look very similar, so it really doesn't make that much difference. And actually, you can make them quite different if you want to. See, I'm kind of spreading this back a little so that the petals shows up a little bit more. And then you'll have a whole lot of fondant down at the bottom. You just want to pinch that off.
Reuse it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And there, you know, we both got our roses.
And they look different. And that's good. And just so as a reminder, the fondant can be stored wrapped and sealed.
Yeah, in plastic wrap. You want to. I usually double wrap mine in plastic wrap. Then we have what's called pearl dust, which is basically edible glitter, and you can use it with a brush, and you can just dip it in your container. You could actually put it out on parchment paper if you want to, and then tap down. Otherwise, you get too much. You also could put it on with some clear vanilla extract.
What would that do?
Just makes it shinier.
Okay.
I actually like to put it on dry, and even if your fondant drapes dry out a little bit, you can still dust them.
Okay, but you can also use this on the more pliable fondant, the fresh fondant, so to speak.
That's what I'm doing here.
Right there on yours. Okay, and I'm working on the rose.
And then what we're going to do is I'm going to hand this one to you, and then I'm going to use a little bit of fondant glue, and with that, that's just basically fondant that's been thinned down with some water, and we're going to put a little bit of it. I like the fondant glue because it dries clear.
We're saying glue, but it's edible.
Absolutely. And let me just get some. I think this is probably in the right spot. I probably should have measured it. But we'll put a little bit of that down there.
Okay.
And remember, just do what you need to do to get it to adhere. And then if you press in.
Right. It's always easiest, right, when you do the using the fresher fondant rather than the hard fondant on
when
hard
it dries
fondant.
out, it's a little bit harder. You'd have to put some more on there. And then if we wanted to touch up, you could touch up with a little bit more glitter that you want to.
Sure.
But then also, you have to be a little bit careful so you don't get it on your cake. But let's do the border.
Okay.
And we have our roses that are pre-made. And I'm just going to add some of the fondant down here at the bottom. And I'm just going to put a string of it there so that you can just lay the roses on it.
May I add them?
Sure.
Okay. And what I really want you to see is how you got that centerpiece of this beautiful cake.
Well, if you can make a large one like that if you use like a styrofoam that's been covered with plastic wrap or saran, or you can also do it with icing if you want. Now I have some buttercream icing and just a tip number 12, and I'm just going to start squirting that out and actually building my mound. And you don't have to be real careful about it.
Okay.
You just want to get a whole bunch there, and then some of our roses that we've made and we've dusted, we just start putting them on top.
And you have some larger ones over there. Perfect for that. Okay.
And these have dried, so you just, you know, tuck them in.
Start filling it in.
You can make some fondant leaves if you wanted to. You could add some buttercream or some royal leaves with that also.
That is so lovely. I mean, I think it looks so nice. Let's look at the final one. We're doing that right now. A pretty cake. What a nice thing. Could be a wedding cake. Could be a 50th anniversary cake.
Shower, Mother's Day, Grandparents' Day. I mean, it's easy to do, but it looks so elegant.
Nice job. Let's keep adding a few more roses to this.